Sparking Change for Harmonious Living is a TV show that inspires action. It motivates you to start a journey towards a more balanced, fulfilling life. This show explores well-being through spirituality, mental clarity, and physical health. It covers topics like mindfulness, nutrition, fitness, and spirituality, giving you practical advice to enhance your life. Tune in for a transformative adventure that ignites the change you seek.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sparking Change for Harmonious Living. I am your host, Giovanna Tartarone.
And I'm your co-host, Ahmed Bahman.
So welcome, everyone. Today's topic is going to be a very interesting one. We're going to be talking about the ego versus harmony, right? And creating that healthy, harmonious balance when we are working from the ego, because I believe we can have a healthy ego or unhealthy ego depending on our actions and our beliefs and what we do in life. So let's go right into it and talk about the definition of ego. I mean, I have my own definition, Ahmed, but let's look at the definition from a spiritual aspect. What do we have? Or, from what everyone knows.
Well, you see, a healthy ego would be something is basically a drive, a little bit of motive that if you're in alignment with your purpose. And an unhealthy ego is basically something that is off track or derailed from your purpose.
Go
Go ahead.
I was just reminded me that, one time someone said to me, ego stands for earth guided only, right? Which means you are trying to do everything yourself and you think you can do everything yourself, but then you're going to come across some struggles.
Yes.
So let's go into that.
Well, you see, if I like the way Bob Proctor stated it, and he said there is a difference between a healthy ego or an ego problem.
Mm-hmm.
He said it's required for you to have a healthy ego because it also relates to your self-esteem, self-confidence, your self-image, and as such. So he says if a person does not have a healthy amount of ego, that person may think that they can't learn. But if a person ego is so much to the point that it's an ego problem, the person would think that it doesn't need to learn.
Right. It's closed-minded versus open-minded. Yes.
Yes. It's a very thin line of distinction. It's where how can we harmonize ourselves into maintaining on the healthy side of the spectrum of this topic is the key.
Yeah. So when we talk about ego, I always thought about you're just thinking about yourself. Unhealthy ego. I'm sorry. I'll go from the unhealthy ego, that you're just thinking about yourself.
Well, if you think about yourself in terms of where you can improve, right? You want to improve your health, for example. You want to improve your bank account. You want to basically improve every aspect area of your life. You see, because when it comes to spirit is always for expansion and fuller expression. So it's okay to want more. That's what desire is, right? You desire to improve, to do better. But the intention that you hold behind it is what matters as well. Okay, I want to achieve such and such. Question is, what am I going to give back? You see, it's not only that you have a healthy ego, but you're not being extremely selfish in that sense, right? You're also giving back to the community, giving back to your family, giving back to your country. So it's all about, one, the intention that you hold behind whatever you want to do and improve, and you're always in a state of creation, right? Most people, let's say from a negative ego aspect, if there is a certain segment in business, they will enter into a competitive mind and would try to grab as much as the biggest slice of that pie in that segment for themselves. But a person with a healthy ego would think differently. It would say, okay, why don't I create a new segment which has a bigger pie that everybody can have a share of that slice?
So we're talking about competition versus
Creation,
cooperation,
cooperation, yes,
right? And so cooperation leads to a healthy ego because now you're working in harmony with others
yes.
versus working in competition and stepping all over people just to get to the top. And I truly believe those people who do that will eventually fall down and hit themselves pretty hard because eventually that's not a healthy ego.
You see, a person that has an ego problem also has an inner struggle. They're
Oh, I love
operating from a place of lack, limitation, always out to get. But a person with a healthy ego, has comfort inside. They're very much content
yes.
because they know, okay, they're operating with a vision of service, right? They don't operate from lack and limitation. They operate from, a place where how can I create something better, not just for me, but for everyone else as well. But here's the thing, people misconfuse with ego problem and how can I, for example, someone would tell me, how can you tell me this is a healthy ego? Well, if you didn't have enough of an ego to pursue it, you wouldn't, because it reflects with your self-image, your self-esteem, and your self-confidence. But if you do have an enough amount of that healthy ego and you're working towards a right purpose,
Hmm.
it will help you to propel and excel in that area.
Absolutely, because you're thinking of others to take along with you
Yes,
instead of just tooting your own horn. Really, that's the way it sounds, right? Um,
absolutely. And it makes you feel so good. It
yeah.
makes you feel so good. Of course, you know, not asking like you do it as a showcase and like to basically show others how great you have achieved and all that. I mean, but it's that inner self contentment that
Hmm.
yes, I did work to improve myself, and now it's time that I can improve others along with me as well.
Right.
As Bob always said, he said, your purpose in life is to do two things: one, to make the most out of yourself, and two, to serve others.
And when you do consider others as you are, driven by your purpose, I believe the results of what you do is automatically seen. Like there's no ego involvement because people know and see how great you are with the impact that you make to others.
And yes, and I love one time I believe at the Napoleon Hill Institute we had a call, and it was brother Scott Edwards, and he said you'd have to learn how to have a balance between ego and empathy.
Right, of course. Of course. Well, when you have empathy, you're working from your heart, right? You're working from
Yes.
your emotions and you feel the connection with people. When you're working with the ego, this is another saying that people heard, EGO can stand for etch got out. And I believe that that's when we are struggling because we don't have empathy. We just want to win, win, win and look great and step over people's toes. I mean, in my old days in corporate America, people used to get to the top by literally hurting the ones underneath or lying about just to get to the top to get their egos up. And they paid the price because then down the road they lost their job.
Yeah,
So,
that's coming from an ego problem mindset.
mm,
But a healthy ego person would say, how can I outperform myself? It's never about the person outside of you, but
mhm.
we have to also understand that our results are also based on what we believe to be true about ourselves, and it's not about stepping on others. It's more about what do I need to correct within me.
Right, because I think when you have that ego mindset, you're separated from your true self. You're
Yes.
separated from your greatness. So because there's separation within, that means on the outside, you have to try to prove that you're better than everyone else.
And that unfortunately is the case with a lot of people,
Mm,
unless they go and reconnect into a communion again, into being in harmony with the divine, and having trust and faith that as I improve myself, so does my conditions.
that's right.
So for once you have that established, there will no more be you'll no longer operate from a feeling of lack and limitation. You're going to be operating from a feeling of abundance.
Absolutely. And with that state of feeling, then you open yourself up to receive more
Yes, you'll
versus, yeah,
attract you'll attract all the necessary conditions, people's events, circumstances that will help you to elevate yourself a little bit further as you go. And you see, the whole thing is once you are operating from a healthy ego,
hmm,
you already have that as a state of being, right?
right.
And your state of being also stems from your state of mind. It's however you perceive to view yourself as. If I think of myself that I repeat to myself, I'm a nice person, I'm a great person. Every situation that I would encounter, if it's in terms of conflict, I will automatically move towards the direction where I would neutralize the situation and create the harmony in my environment.
Hmm.
But if a person always says, I'm the best, nobody else, for example, can basically pass above me, then I'm operating from a different state. If I'm encountered with different situations, I would try to defeat the other person, not realizing that an inner conflict that I have.
Right, right, right. And not only that, you also prevent yourself from change, right? People who have an ego cannot accept change in their life because they're
They,
working not from their soul, they're working from their head, and that creates a conflict.
the conflict, there's also some resistance. What did we learn from our late mentor Bob Proctor? He said, "Whatever you resist will persist."
Yeah.
So, so what is the way? The only way that I got to learn, and I learned it both ways because I got to apply it as well, is through surrender. You
I
cannot
love that.
open yourself up if you don't surrender first. You have to surrender that ego down, and you have to realign yourself with your purpose.
Yeah.
And Bob always said, he said one thing. He said, "You don't have to create your purpose. Your purpose has been given to you. You have to merely discover it."
And sometimes the ego's in the way and you don't get a chance to discover it. So you're going to go down that path of pain and suffering until you do, until you get
Yes,
yourself in alignment with that. Because, yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm.
And that's the thing, when you surrender, as goes the term, let go and let God. But without establishing a faith, you won't be able to, you know, feel that connection.
Now we
So
just
it's a daily, how can I say, let it be your daily ritual with your affirmations.
hmm I guess that what comes to mind too is that, are you living in fear or are you living in faith?
Yes,
Right? Because if you're
absolutely.
living in faith, you don't need the ego to come in.
You just reminded me of our dear brother Pablo
hmm
living in faith.
Living
And
that was definitely not planned, but yes, you're right.
yes,
You're right.
and it's true because faith and fear cannot occupy the mind and heart at the same time. So the great news is you always have a choice, but don't allow the ego problem to drag you in a space where you'll be drifting without realizing how far you've gone.
Because you're not only losing connection with people, because I truly believe those with an ego will keep those without an ego away. Like, I know I don't want to mingle too much with people that have egos, because to me, they're not working from the heart, right? They're working from a separation, right? There's something going on that makes them need to have that ego.
Absolutely. And as our late mentor Bob Proctor said, he said you can only attract things, for example, or people to you that are vibrating in harmony with you. And he also mentioned, he said, birds of a feather are flocked together. So whatever
So a
person
lot of
you are,
egos together don't make a nice combination.
no,
Not a good team. Not a good team.
but here's the thing. We have to consciously decide that we want to operate from a healthier side
hmm
of of the spectrum. Like if even like when it comes to our eating habits, right? If look at your uh, what are you feeding your body?
hmm
You know, I'm not. Everybody has a different taste. Some people live just for the flavor, but some people live for the nutritious benefits.
hmm
So, am I just filling my stomach out of my ego because I love how it tastes, and ignoring the fact that I need to nourish this holy temple? Or am I doing the opposite? You
You know
see,
what?
a health.
What just came to mind is people who, let's say have high blood pressure or cannot have, a nice big filet mignon or something, but they'll have it anyway because their ego says, that's the top of the line piece of meat that I need, I can have, and I'm going to eat that,
No,
right?
no,
Meanwhile, it's
for
not healthy.
like once in a while, if you want to have it, it's okay. Your body needs definitely different varieties. There is
Mhm.
some nutritional source, um, but if you ignore balancing out with
Mhm.
whatever you're intaking, like if you're not eating the foods that are growing from the earth, then there's going to be an unbalance within the body itself.
Right. So the ego really plays a part in everything we do in our lives. It's not just, at work or whatever. If you have an ego, it's gonna be like an effect in every area, whether it's in your relationship, whether it's your home, whether it's in the food you eat. So understanding how that plays a role to your happiness, right,
Absolutely.
is
And
important.
as I mentioned earlier, like it's the intention that you hold behind it as well. For example,
Mhm.
um, a lot of people are also confusing, and when they see somebody, for example, driving a nice car,
Mhm.
right? They start to envy that person. Oh, they call on to that person, that this person is egoistic. But I don't believe that to be the case. For example, if a person is genuinely helping others, and this is a piece of art that he wishes to have, I find that to be totally fine. But because this person is actually living his purpose, he's he's actually
Right.
helping others as well along the process. So can the person do that as well who is envying this person,
Well,
right?
they're judging a book by its cover,
They're
basically.
judging the book by its cover. But then there's other people, especially that they will say, okay, they may not be financially doing well, but they will go ahead to take a huge car loan, for example, to buy a flashy vehicle in order to impress others and put themselves in trouble.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, we're not
Hmm.
saying that you have every right to do what you want. It's up to you. But from what is the intention
Yeah.
behind taking such decisions? That's what counts, right?
Right. I love that. Like I mentioned before, when there is separation, right? And ego is, I know from what I studied, is the false self. It's not the true self.
Yes.
I say there's always two of us. It's the one that we know that we're connected to, and then there's the one that we have to show everyone. So the ego takes the role of what we have to show everyone, and we're truly disconnected to who we are. And when we are disconnected, we are imbalanced. When we're out of balance, excuse me, we're out of balance.
Well, it's like if you have on one hand, if you're operating from spirit, and then another hand you're operating from your ego, as an example. In between, you have what we call, as our lead mentor always says, paradigm.
Hmm.
Now, my question is, if we are passively accepting anything,
Hmm.
basically your ego will take over the paradigm and program you for something completely off track to whatever your purpose may be. But if you take that conscious decision
Mm,
to tame, to guide, to align yourself,
yes.
and get into that habit, then you will meet with serenity. You'd meet with what a lot of people would call luck or
Hmm.
miracles. I like what Bob said about miracles. He said miracles are nothing but no known effects of unknown causes. But there's
Right.
always a cause before the effect.
And you will know the cause based on, are you following your purpose? Are you following what you came here to do? Because everyone came here to do something special, right? And
Absolutely.
if we're in alignment, then we have a healthy ego.
Yes. When you're in alignment, you're also in a state of surrender. You will feel very much at peace with yourself.
Hmm.
You're happy all the time. You're not worried about what life has to offer you because you know you're operating from your heart.
And you don't see obstacles,
No.
you see opportunities.
You see opportunities. As
Hmm.
When was it? It was, I think, in World War One, when Napoleon Bonaparte was surrounded by the German army, and they were basically engulfed all around. And he managed to gather his troops into a single line and penetrate through. So they asked him. They said, "How did you manage to break free from being engulfed?" And he stated something close to, yeah. He said, "I see only the objective. The obstacle must give way." So here, another thing is, when if you're in alignment on purpose
Hmm.
towards a certain direction, no matter what that may be, you need that kind of a healthy ego to push forward.
Right.
But given the fact that you also have a certain amount of confidence that it's for the greater good, not just for yourself, but as well for others,
Yes, yes.
your belief of that coming to manifest is much stronger. So therefore, those obstacles will give way because you believe sincerely for that to be true.
And you have faith that you're doing it for the higher good of all, not just for you.
Yes.
I love that. So, final tip in order to get out of the ego into the heart, because that's
Surrender.
surrender.
It's
And
the
and I also want to say you're not alone. Connect with your higher self.
it's
Those little whispers are calling you all the time. Are you listening? Because then the ego would dissipate.
it's
Yeah.
the inner dialogue that you have a
Mhm.
choice to choose which direction you want to go. And I'm sure
Yes.
if you choose wisely, you'll have a happy life.
Love that. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on today's show, and we will see you next time. Thank you, Ahmed.
Thank you. See you next week.
Beautiful. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change for Harmonious Living. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change for Harmonious Living.